How has the offense looked different without LaMelo Ball? Plus, we play deal or no deal with Myles Turner trades. And finally, we live the Hive Life with David Walker coming up today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, local experts on the #1 daily sports podcast network. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. This episode is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is the new app that saves you money by helping you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't want or need, and can even negotiate better deals on those you want to keep. Follow us on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Walker Mail. Doug's on Twitter at Doug Branson LOH. The show handle on Twitter at Locked On Hornets. And David joining us today. He's on Twitter at David B. Walker. David, thanks for hopping on, man. How are you?
Absolutely, fellas. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. I'm ready for a fun Friday. I'm ready to live the Hive life, and I'm ready to go Hive Live. That's what's taking place right now, right, Doug?
We are Hive Live on YouTube, so if you are watching us live on YouTube, make sure to hit up the chat. We want some questions. We want those Locked On Hornets, hardcore Hornets fans to power this show.
That's right. We do. I like that we're just putting Hive in front of everything these days. It's just a very easy segment
branding.
name.
It's called branding.
Thank you very much. And it's such an easy thing to go to when you cover the Charlotte Hornets, and we're going to exhaust all of those opportunities. We'll get to some deal or no deal coming up. Got Myles Turner trades. Got a couple that have been put out there on the interwebs. Dylan Jackson coming up with a couple on Swarm and Sting, James Plowright from some out there. I've got some myself. So I'm going to play Howie Mandel. I'm going to throw a couple of deal or no deals at you, and you're going to play the role of Mitch Kupchak, and you will accept it or you will deny it based on what you think is best for this team. We'll live the Hive Life later on. I got Eric Collins in there once again. Got to have Eric Collins in the Hive Life segment.
I love that, Walker, and I love trade machine season, but doesn't it feel like trade machine season gets earlier and earlier every year? It's kind of like the Christmas. It's kind of like the Christmas creep. Like we're getting into trade machine season so early this year.
Well, the Pacers decided they want to blow it up after 20 games. We have to do this now.
Doug, are you declaring?
They want to retool. They want to retool.
Right.
They don't want to rebuild. They want to retool.
Are you declaring war on trade season, Doug? Are you?
I love
fighting?
it. I love the
I just want to make sure.
ridiculous machinations that people go through to get a player on their team.
I think,
and then it always ends. And you know my rule. You know my rule about trade machine season. If you put something out on the trade machine on Twitter or on social media, you have killed that possibility. Those things never happen, so you are speaking it out of existence.
I think that's true. You do that. Also, I think you just kind of want to move on from mock trade season because you want to get to mock draft season. That's what you're ready for. And I think that's the thing that you want to do. See, I see right by your plan. I know exactly what it is that you want. And because the mock drafts that we most recently had kind of went the Hornets' way. They got praised this past draft class for getting Book Knight and Kai Jones, but also the year before that, we got LaMelo Ball, who has become a potential superstar already, kind of a superstar. Looks like he's going to make the All-Star team. He is the centerpiece of this team right now, and he's given us as much hope as any player has in quite some time and probably ever. But he's been out, Doug. I mean, we have not seen LaMelo the last 3 games. Great job by the Hornets to just compete. They even won against the Atlanta Hawks, against Philadelphia. The Nick Batum Philly curse has not allowed them to get a victory against Philadelphia, but they got close, an overtime loss, and then the other one just by 4 points a couple of nights ago. What have you noticed, though, from this? Not just the fight, not just that this team doesn't give up, kind of acknowledge that, but what have you seen from this offense specifically without one LaMelo Ball running things on the court?
The Hornets are 1-3 in their last 4 games, but they've I would say 4 for 4 on valiant efforts. I don't know what those count for,
and we've made note of that. And I don't want to downplay that. Like, it's just we continue to say it's a great job that they're not giving up, and it's so true. You know, it is. Yeah. It's just we are acknowledging that as well.
Well, and I think I love to talk about just like how this offense has changed since LaMelo Ball has exited. I just threw some numbers up on the screen, and that is What did that do to you, David? You seemed
I wasn't ready for that at all.
He's not
just
ready.
A huge spreadsheet.
He just had the Kevin Durant tweet scroll through his brain. Who wants to do math and look at graphs? Yeah, that's what he did when we're talking about
work
basketball.
Computer came back on for a second.
Yeah.
So I've got this up on the screen right now. If you want to check us out on YouTube, if you're listening on the podcast, it's from Cleaning the Glass, and it's a game log. And I've got their half-court offense putbacks, some stats up on the screen. And a couple of things I've noticed with LaMelo being out, and I wanted to double-check it in the stats to see if my eyes were deceiving me or if I was really interpreting this correctly. But I've noticed a couple of things. One, the offense is a little bit more conservative. They're getting out on the run almost as much, but maybe a little less, playing a little bit more half-court offense with LaMelo off the floor. But it's just a lot less creative. They're being more protective of the basketball, except for that loss to Philly, the last loss to Philly, where they were starting to turn the ball over a little bit more. They were turning the ball over at an exceptionally low rate without LaMelo on the floor. And that makes sense, right? Because LaMelo is super creative with the basketball. And sometimes that creativity can result in more turnovers, but it also results in a more unpredictable offense. This is a little bit more of a predictable offense, and they're crashing the glass a ton. And I think that is to manufacture a little bit of offense where you've lost that from LaMelo. So just a couple of things I've noticed with how this offense has changed without LaMelo.
You mentioned those turnovers. They had 8 in the first game against Philadelphia. It allowed them a chance, and then they played better defense against Philadelphia, did a little better job, I guess, on Joel Embiid. We can talk about the officials or whatever, but they had 19 turnovers against Philadelphia the second time, a big difference, and it didn't allow them to get the victory.
And they've generally been, just real quick, they've generally been a good team at limiting turnovers, even with LaMelo Ball on the floor. And you can see that as I scroll through this third column here, which is their turnover. I feel like I'm a weather person.
Mm-hmm.
Like here in the third column, their turnover percentage has been generally good. They've had a few games, but early in the season they had some trouble. But even with LaMelo on the floor in this 6-game sample, they were really good at protecting the basketball. But look at these 2 games against Philly and Atlanta. 96 percentile, 99 percentile, 7.8% turnover percentage, 6.1. Crazy low numbers because they became a more conservative offense.
Yeah, I mean, I thought right out of the gate when they just had lost, LaMelo, and some of the rest of the guys were still in there, they could still run that fast-paced style, get up and look to run. It's a bit of a small sample size, but specifically in that last game against Philly, I mean, that game for a lot of reasons slowed down. I mean, Joel Embiid spent hours upon hours at the free throw line. That game almost took 3 hours to play. And so when they got in that half-court set and they couldn't get out and run, I think that's where you saw a lot of those issues come up, where they just didn't have a point guard to run the show, right? They didn't have, even an Ish out there to help direct things and to help get them up and going. So we finally saw that creep in, and I don't know if they'll be able to, correct that in the short term without those guys. Maybe in a different type of game, maybe tonight against the Kings, they will be able to get out and run like they like to. But I was just impressed from the get-go. When they were without a few guys, they were able to still do what they wanted to do, which was impressive to me. And they've played well. To your point, valiant effort all across the board.
And one other change that I've noticed is, and Doc Rivers, head coach of the Sixers, even mentioned this in one of his post-game press conferences. This team is really good at cutting off ball.
Yeah.
And I think they've had to do a ton of that since LaMelo has been gone, because LaMelo can move a defense by himself with his ability to drive the basketball and attract attention and pull guys a little further because he can shoot so well from deep. That without that, you have to do a lot more to create open space. And the Hornets, to their credit, have been able to do that, and they've had the energy and focus to do that. And I think part of that is the fact that this unit has played together for a few seasons now. There is a familiarity. If this team were mostly constructed of free agent or trade acquisitions this season, I think they'd be getting blown out of the water. But it's the fact that Myles, PJ, Cody, these guys have all been playing together. There's a familiarity there.
Real quickly, because we're running up against some time, but I do want to get to one other thing before we move on to the next segment. David, you talked about all of the free throw attempts from Joel Embiid. Miles Bridges made a point about that after the game and said it slowed us up. We couldn't get in a rhythm because Joel Embiid just lived at the foul line. And so anytime that we would get something going offensively at the end, it would come to a dead halt because Joel Embiid was at the free throw line again, and we couldn't keep that momentum up. And so you said the same thing Miles Bridges essentially did after that game. The other thing is, Doug, you mentioned the cutting Doc Rivers talking about that. We've given Cody Martin a ton of praise in that specific aspect. I think Jalen McDaniels is really good at cutting, and I think Kelly Oubre is really good at cutting. And now you look at what Kelly Oubre has done. We've given him a lot of praise the last 10 games. He deserves it offensively. But Zach Lowe has noticed Kelly Oubre in the 10 Things weekly column that Zach Lowe puts out there. Kelly Oubre came in at number 5 with the little subtitle, "And the Art of the Roll Turned Pop." I'll try to read through this quickly. He said, "It's the little twist available to screen setters of any size, provided they can shoot." And so what happens is he's talking about specific plays where Kelly Oubre will set a screen, fake the roll, fake the dive, but then kind of backpedal towards the three-point line. The defense is already backpedaling themselves. They can't react fast enough. Kelly has been shooting well enough lately where it's just lethal. So Kelly having that a part of this, where James Borrego's implementing that, really cool play, really cool wrinkle in their offense. Also, here's another thing that he talks about with Kelly. Is it time to start talking about Oubre as one of Tyler Hero's competitors for 6th Man of the Year? Oubre is averaging 17 points and a career-best 46% shooting, close to 40 on threes, 56 on twos, which is something we have not discussed a lot. He has averaged 25 or more over Charlotte's past 8 years. He's averaged 25 over Charlotte's past 8 games, including 85 combined over the past 3. And here's another interesting stat he points out. Oubre rounds out Charlotte's centerless lineups. The Hornets have blitzed opponents by 8 points per 100 possessions when Oubre plays without any traditional bigs, and that balloons to 11 when LaMelo was on the floor. And so when you're talking about LaMelo and Kelly working together without a traditional big, it's 11 points per 100 possessions better. Like, Kelly has provided very, very good offense for them, especially the last 10 games.
He's been awesome. I mean, he was the reason they were in a position to win that first game against Philly. Speaking of that, guys, they've had 5 consecutive 30-point scores, different scores in the last 5 games, which kind of speaks to the depth that these Hornets have. But yeah, I mean, who would have thought that, Walker, in the beginning of the year, Kelly Oubre in talks for 6th Man of the Year? But I don't think you can deny it at this point. If you watch these Hornets play, if you watch how much they depend on him for scoring at times and the big shots that he's made, he's got to be up there right now at this point in the season. Of course, he gets killed for the negative stuff, maybe the quick shot at the end of a game or a missed layup here or there. But you can't deny that he's really bounced back from his time in Golden State and performed well here in Charlotte.
I think you might be on mute, Doug. Doug, I think you're on mute. I think we're Hive Live and you're muted.
All right. I'm back, ladies and gentlemen.
Get that hot take out.
Yeah, all right. So, I know it was so hot it muted my mic, melted my microphone. So I've got Kelly Oubre's effective field goal percentage here up on the screen from cleaningtheglass.com, way above his position average, starting at about a quarter of a way through the season. He's improved tremendously, and now he's in this sort of starting role. He's going to juice his numbers for 6th Man of the Year just by virtue of all of these players being out due to protocol. And the interesting thing too is, like, early in the season, we talked about how Kelly Oubre and Cody Martin were this sort of conjoined 6th Man of the Year because Cody provided you the defensive hustle and Kelly provided you the microwave scoring. And now what's interesting is, like, Cody Martin is leading the NBA in 3-point percentage at this point. I mean, he's become a legitimate scoring threat. And Kelly Oubre, I think, has stepped up his defensive energy, at least. I don't know about schematics and if he's, how many mistakes he's making, but he's had multiple steal games, several of those games since this whole protocol debacle. He's stepped up and caused some turnovers. So, I mean, Kelly Oubre is definitely going to get the nod because he's the scorer, and the 6th Man of the Year award is essentially, what did you call it before the show, Walker?
The Lou Will Award.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's going to go to the scorer, but Kelly Oubre definitely doing things. And here we got a comment from old mate Sean. Let's see if I can get it up on the screen. It'll cover our faces, but that's okay. Oubre up to second behind Tyler Hero on the betting markets in Australia for 6th Man of the Year. So getting some love overseas.
Yeah, very cool. By the way, I think the 6th Man of the Year award, if we're going to call it the Lou Will Award, it should just be this gold lemon pepper wing trophy that we hand out to somebody. And I think Kelly Oubre has earned the lemon pepper trophy this year, at least through the last 10 games. We'll see if it's sustainable.
But a perfect fit, guys. I mean, really, if you look back to that signing in the offseason, it was a bit of an afterthought when it happened. It was after the first initial wave of a lot of those big signings. And we talked about it in the offseason a little bit, Doug. He's been a perfect fit for this team because he can get out and run. He cuts, like we talked about a little bit earlier. He's long enough on the wings where he adds depth there. And his scoring has been off the charts. So, kudos to Mitch and those guys for bringing another guy in who could really impact this team and contribute to their winning. He's been a great fit.
Yeah, Zach Lowe said the same thing about Mitch. And here's Tyler Manning giving an interesting thought. Honestly, I would trade Kelly Oubre and package around him for Myles Turner. So one, thanks to Tyler Manning for a comment. Two, interesting, though. It's what we're going to talk about come the next segment, so stick around.
Segue.
Deal or no deal with Myles Turner trades. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. I play the role of Howie Mandel. We play Deal or No Deal coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
Segue. Yeah. It's called a radio segue.
Well, and I'm
feeling better, by the way. If you didn't notice, I didn't want. I'm a little bit of a private person, so I don't talk about my health issues often on the show. But now I'm healthy, and I think people are going to notice a change in me today. So I just wanted to kind of go ahead and get that out of the way. That Doug is unleashed on this show today, so watch out.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
That tease led Doug intrigued, and it made David, I don't know what your feelings were on that tease. It didn't seem like you were wanting to trade one Kelly Oubre, but we're going to give you your day to speak on it here in just a second. We've got deals, baby. We've got some for Myles Turner. Who do you want to send out if you're Mitch Kupchak to try to go get that center that has not really been on this team for a long time, at least in James Borrego's eyes? And so let's start off with something hot. I think this is one of the harder ones, and I just want to start off right off the bat with it. So here's how we're going to do it. You guys are going to be Mitch Kupchak. I am going to be Indiana, Kevin Pritchard, trying to work everything around and see what kind of trade we can make. And you will have the option of accepting the deal to say deal or no deal here. And so in this trade, the first one, Doug will start with you.
By the way, David, I'll be Mitch and you be Kupchak, okay?
I thought you were going to be good Mitch and I was going to be evil Mitch. And
there you go.
Come to one decision.
However you want to do it. You guys divvy that up all you want to.
Figure it out.
So here's the proposed deal, okay? Charlotte receives Myles Turner. Indiana receives P.J. Washington and just the 2022 New Orleans lottery-protected pick. So P.J. and the lottery-protected pick going to Indiana, and Charlotte receives Myles Turner. Doug, I'll start with you. Whether you're good Mitch, whether you're just Mitch, do you accept that deal?
Yeah, I think it's an illegal deal, though, right? Because the contracts don't quite.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It is an illegal deal. That is an illegal deal. So Kelly Oubre, we'll add Kelly.
Yeah.
Oof.
You got to add Kelly or this trade here.
So
from
go ahead.
Plumlee, PJ, Vern. Plumlee and PJ has been a popular, which I don't advocate Plumlee, PJ because
Where are you going to have
I just showed one from Perry. Thank you for chatting. He said Plumlee, PJ, Vern, and a first for Turner. I don't advocate that because you're losing the center depth at that point again. Like if Myles gets hurt, then you're in the exact same position minus a center, and you've got to depend on Nick Richards. But I think
so. If Kelly is included, that right? Didn't put the matching salary there. If Kelly is included, Kelly, PJ, and the lottery protected first from New Orleans for Myles Turner, are you accepting that deal if you're Charlotte? That's a tough one.
I think so. Honestly, that's going to be the toughest deal. That's going to that's probably the most realistic thing that the Pacers are asking for, and I think you do because if you keep as valuable as PJ has been as a shooting big, and as valuable as Kelly has been as a scorer, you're not winning a playoff series without the center position bulked up. So,
and you feel like at some point that PJ Myles conversation is going to happen. They've been kicking the can down the road for a few years. Myles popped. PJ's playing fantastic, maybe the best basketball of his career at the same time.
He's really good. Yeah.
But is that sustainable in the long run, or is that really a championship or a playoff contending formula for those two guys? So on the PJ front, you feel like you have to pull the trigger. If it takes Oubre to make it happen, you kind of have to do that too, because as we said, they've got 30-point scorers up and down this roster.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to take shipping one of them off, who may require more money in the future anyway, it's something that you have to look at. And I want to get rid of that pick. That awful karma pick from New Orleans. It sucks.
That was a stinky,
it's worthless.
It's a stinky pick.
It's not going anywhere except down. Let's get rid of it.
Well, and the thing on PJ is, if you're pro keeping PJ, I would say to you this, that PJ has been extremely valuable this season precisely because the Hornets don't have center depth. They've been able to put him into positions where he could succeed, and he has been just absolute fire from three. Does that maintain? Can that hold for the entire season? I'm a little bit skeptical of that. We've seen him be streaky before. So I would be okay with PJ, because you've got to make a decision. We're having the same conversation, by the way, this franchise with PJ and Myles, that the Pacers have had with Myles and Sabonis, and you don't want to get caught in that situation.
I think we kind of figured that out, though, didn't we? Like at first, I think we were
Mm-hmm.
having the redundant conversation. I think that's kind of fixed itself. At
But
first, I didn't think they could.
Well, but because we haven't had to make the decision on paying anyone yet. See, that's why Indiana's in trouble, is because they gave both those guys huge contracts. We haven't got to the point where we've had to pay PJ or Myles, and now they have to make that decision so they don't end up in that situation.
And I hear, I think they were paying both really talented dudes. We'll figure out the fit later. I think they figured out the fit with Myles and PJ now. It's just about how much money PJ is going to get. My thing with
that
PJ,
so rarely works. That rarely works when you say, like, we'll pay everybody and figure out the fit later.
And it didn't for Indiana. Yeah.
It doesn't. You can't just figure out the fit later. It either fits, like my pants. They either fit or they don't, and lately they haven't been.
Well,
so I've had to trade my
Like,
pants.
It fits, but how long can you take a walk in those pants? You know what I mean? How far is it going to take you down the road?
Right. Are you committed to working out in order for those pants to fit down the line? Were the Pacers willing to figure something? No deal. I agree. I think my point being, I think they have figured it out. It's just PJ Washington is such a good small ball center in an NBA world where small ball lineups are so damn lethal, and you're getting rid of the unlocking piece to all of that. I think if this was the only way Indiana would accept this, I'm reluctantly doing it. I don't want to, but I am reluctantly doing a hard one. But if these other deals are in place and Indiana would accept them, I would much rather choose these next ones. I'll give you another one. So Charlotte receives Myles Turner. Indiana receives Kelly Oubre, but this time James Bouknight and Kai Jones. So your 2 first-round picks from this past draft class, Kelly Oubre, and then return Charlotte gets Myles Turner. David, I'll lead with you this time. Deal or no deal?
I don't think this is a deal, because you don't want to give up on your rookies that soon, especially not your first-round picks. I mean, that's how this team has kind of tried to build from within. I think that's the formula for success. You haven't seen enough. They're so raw, and you've got them on, obviously, rookie contracts. Who knows when that will really be an advantage? But at this point, I don't think you can give up both of them plus Oubre to bring in a Myles Turner. It feels like you're punting a little bit on the future at that point.
I'll just say that most of the chat, I've been throwing them up here on the screen. Most of the chat, which by the way is blowing up right now. I love this is the most action we've ever had on the chat. We don't do many live shows, but thank you for chatting. Keep it coming. We'll put it on the screen.
King Fuses Lit House. Not a fan of PJ.
Okay, that's all
Doesn't
right.
like PJ.
That's fine.
Get him out.
You can like PJ or not like PJ. It's a free country. We've got international people in the chat, so it's a free world. But yeah, most of the people against Bouknight, I'm against trading Bouknight. I'm against trading Bouknight. I'm against trading Kai Jones. I think as much as you can avoid trading some of these future exciting pieces, I think you've got to try to hold the line there if you're Kupchak. Maybe one's got to go of JT, Bouknight, or Kai. I think you probably keep Bouknight. Kai's a little bit more of a project. That could go either way in my opinion.
And you do have Thor, right? I mean, you have Thor there
that's
too.
the thing. Yeah.
I'm kind of more confident in Thor at this point.
That's what I'm saying. So if you were going to let Kai go, you'd feel okay about that.
That's another argument, by the way. That's another argument for jettisoning. PJ, is that a word? I don't know. Is my mic on? It is. That's another argument for jettisoning PJ, is that you've got, and this was brought up in the chat, I had it on the screen earlier, but you have Kai and JT Thor, which could one day replace PJ. You don't have a center replacement. So that's, you're getting something that you need and moving something out that you possibly will be able to replace in the future.
Yeah. I think I'm doing that one. I know that one's tough. Yeah.
You know what? You're anti-rookie. I'll say that. You're generally anti-rookie.
Now, Walker, are you just have that good a feeling about Myles Turner coming in here and making that significant impact?
Well,
I think that's where I'm a little stuck. I mean, not that I don't think he would obviously fill a huge need for this team.
Mm-hmm.
I have come around to face the fact that he would make this team a lot better. I think it's just a sticking point of like, I don't know how much. I mean, they've been trying to trade him since he got there. He said it himself. He's in every trade rumor every week, and it's like, what's up? Why is that? What's going on? Has no one figured out how to unlock that yet?
Well, one, Myles is playing a lot better than he has in years past. He's going to be, I think, 26 in March, but still, he's 25 years old. The only thing that makes you a little weary of trading for Myles is that he has only 1 year left on his deal after this one is done. But all that being said, you get and develop talent. I mean, people are discussing, hey, you want to get rid of James Bouknight, Kai Jones. This team has shown that they can develop talent with the best of them, and so you might as well keep them on the squad. And that's great, but you develop talent in part to then trade that for other things that you need, because you can't have everybody that you draft and just play them constantly and have them, you're going to have like 18, 19, 20 guys out of all the players that you drafted. So if you package a couple for somebody that could really help this team, if you already have Terry Rozier locked in long-term, if you have LaMelo, who is going to be a cornerstone, Bouknight is probably what you're talking about, a sixth man coming off the bench, because he's not going to start at 3. LaMelo, Terry, they're not starting at 3. I'm cool with Bouknight. I'm willing to take the gamble because Kai Jones is such a gamble in that own right of trading up and drafting him. I'm willing to try to get the sure thing to help them right now with a huge position of need on a playoff mandate year to go get Myles Turner, and that's my reasoning for all of that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. I mean, I just think it hurts, especially from Kai's standpoint. We haven't seen anything from him. I don't think I'm as high on Bouknight as basically everyone in the arena the other night. I mean, it was good to see him get some good minutes. I'm still not quite sure how consistent or where he fits in the long run, but like it's always the rookie thing.
You just haven't seen enough of him yet. I think that's the thing. You gotta see a little bit more.
I'll tell you what I did see. I saw him get lost on defense. Like I haven't seen anyone get lost since Malik Monk.
That's anti-rookie, David.
No.
Yeah,
he
but
made up
what
for
I'm
it.
saying,
He made up for it.
I think Book will figure that piece out. I have confidence that Book will figure that piece out.
It was literally the first play, and like the ball zipped around, and he was just doing this, and then it went by him. But that's all right. I'll give him a break.
Producer Doug, do you want to go to the rest of these and then go afterwards to the third segment? How do you want to handle this?
I think that the chat that I have on the screen right now from Perry, I think Turner would thrive in Charlotte and play a lot better than he did Indiana. Perfectly segues into what we wanted to talk about with Turner, Sabonis. Do some of that. We could do it next segment. We can do Hive Life.
Let's do it. We can do that. We'll talk about Myles Turner and the energy boost he would give to the Charlotte Hornets team. Speaking of energy boost, let's talk about Built Bars, the best energy bar on the market. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, or even better than a candy bar. It's filled with so much holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but also amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. So you get the best of both worlds. It is delicious, and it's healthy. Plus, they have so many flavors. You'll have a hard time choosing. Will you have the raspberry, the mint brownie, the cherry, or the double chocolate, cookies and cream, peanut butter brownie? It's all so very good. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off of your order. I'll bet that you'll love it. And if you want to put a bet down yourself, go to Bet Online. They've got you covered all season for more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. You can head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. Bet Online is the fastest and the easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. Let's talk about the fit between a Myles Turner and if there's a trade that could happen for Domantas Sabonis, bringing him to Charlotte. That's coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
This is Locked On Hornets.
And would I have liked to see a few more shards? No, I would not.
I saw some shards.
It's time for more of the Locked On Hornets podcast.
You know, people have not been talking a ton about Sabonis and the idea that he could come to Charlotte. And, you know, you see the fit with Myles and Sabonis. It just didn't really work out with Indiana. They're already just this soon into a year with Rick Carlisle as the coach for the first time up with the Pacers, trying to figure that big man rotation out. You know, they're willing to move on, at least from one of those guys. You know, even if they don't blow it up or retool a crazy amount, I have to imagine Myles Turner is probably the guy traded. It just seemed like he's been dangled out there for so long. And then because of that, he had some comments towards The Athletic. He said, "It's clear that I'm not valued as anything more than a glorified role player here, and I want something more. I want more opportunity. I'm trying really hard to make the role that I'm given here work and find a way to maximize it. I've been trying to the past 2-3 seasons, but it's clear to me that just numbers-wise, I'm not valued as more than a rotational role player, and I hold myself in a higher regard than that." I'm sympathetic to that a little bit with Myles. Like, Myles Turner has been at the forefront of trade discussions as much as any single player in the NBA the past couple of seasons. Remember, the Celtics were almost going to get Myles, but they decided they didn't want him, and then they lose Gordon Hayward essentially for nothing except for a traded player exception, and I think they use it on like Tristan Thompson and maybe even, I forget who, maybe Fournier, I think that was it. So really a loss on their end, and then, all right, well, Indiana's just going to keep Turner anyway, and then he's been dangled out so often. What do you think about the way Myles feels? Doug, we'll start with you, and what he could possibly be here in Charlotte and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I think Indiana got stuck in a situation where they thought Myles Turner was the future, and then, they got Sabonis from OKC, and Sabonis turned in sort of unexpectedly into a all-star level player, and now you've got an issue. And it's obviously not working, and Myles wants a bigger role in the offense. I think if he came over to Charlotte, he would have that bigger role. He would be an extremely potent pick-and-roll threat with LaMelo Ball. And then I think, when I look at Turner versus Sabonis, I just look at the shot blocking capabilities that Myles Turner would bring. It's something the Hornets desperately need. It's something I'm not, you look at Sabonis, his block percentage has gone down, and he didn't start out with a great block percentage, and it's gone down every year that he's been in the league. How much is that? How much is that him playing alongside Turner and not having to do that? And how much is that just not his thing? So that's what I look at, and it would make things a lot easier for LaMelo Ball defensively. We talk a lot about the offense that Myles Turner would bring, but defensively, we know LaMelo loves to gamble. And sometimes when he loses the gamble, it's automatic points for the other team because there's nobody there, to be a threat at the rim. So it would allow, I don't know if you can stop LaMelo from gambling on defense. It's just going to be one of his things. And it ends up, when it ends up in a steal and a transition threat, it's great. But at least that would hurt the team less when those kind of things happen. So I think I'm more Myles than Sabonis at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Myles is really the perfect fit here, or at least the type of player that he pretends to be, and I think that is. I mean, he can step out and hit the three, so you can work as your stretch five. That's another reason you don't feel quite as scared of losing PJ's production from that angle. I think back to that first opening game, though, and Sabonis worked over Plumlee, especially in that first half, just destroyed him. So you kind of see that, and you're like, well, maybe he can be that, back to the basket, low post scorer. But it just feels like what Myles Turner brings on the defensive end, when you add that in there, that's what they've been lacking. Somebody, anybody, in the middle to hold down the fort. Myles Turner would be the perfect fit for Charlotte. As to his feelings, I mean, I guess it's good. I think everyone should value themselves highly, right? He has been what he's been in Indiana, and when you've got a Brogdon and a Sabonis and some guys on that team who have come through there that are going to be more of the focal points of the offense, I think that's just where it evened out for him. But I do think, Doug, the LaMelo Ball factor, and this is kind of a larger picture point, he's going to be such an attractive player for other, possible additions to want to come here and play with, that he's going to make anybody happy who's looking to up their game, score more points, do more, and show out. He's just going to be that much better for everyone.
To that point, so Myles Turner's complaint is that he's a glorified role player. Really, his complaint, I think, is that he's a glorified role player on a team that can't turn a glorified role player into an all-star level player. Like he could be, LaMelo's Chris Bosh. That's the thing. Glorified role players, when they're paired with the right person that can develop their talent and play to their skill set, can become, multi-time all-stars. And that's the potential that Myles has if he moves over to Charlotte.
Well, and the thing is, when we talk about the best fit between Sabonis and Turner, like Sabonis is clearly way more offensively gifted. The guy's awesome, and he's a way better passer than what Myles is. He's just handles the basketball a lot better in the post, and the decision-making is a lot better. But Myles is a better shooter, and the way that Turner is playing right now, shooting 39.5% from three, you talk about him being a league leader in blocked shots the past 2 seasons, being one of the better rim protectors, overall defensive players just being top 10 in the league. Think about that. If you're the Charlotte Hornets, who have really struggled with post defense forever, and then all of a sudden it becomes a strength with one player that you trade for. When's the last time post defense and rim protection was a strength for this team? Because I can't tell you the last time that was the case. And the fact that he can shoot. If Sabonis is so clearly better an offensive player, and that's true, I'm not questioning that. Anybody with eyes watching him play, they can see that. But he's also not a better shooter. So think about how crazy that skill set is within one player. Somebody who has the ability to, even if you don't buy the 40% is going to sustain 36, okay, fine. From a guy that's close to 7 foot, who is that good at protecting the rim. I also think that with these little nuances he's added to his offensive game, that's the guy that can come in and help this team. And so if we want to talk about specifically who best fits with LaMelo in just pick and roll, who is the more lethal duo in that regard, it's Sabonis, because Sabonis is so good. But who helps the team more? I think it's Myles by a significant amount, and that's why I want to trade for Turner, especially when you add in it's not going to take as many assets to get him.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna hang up if they offer up either one. At this point,
No.
It'll be just about putting the right package together. It is a little trickier to fit in Sabonis, and I think they could do it. I mean, look, as talented as he is, to fit in another guy on this team, I think they could do it. But you're right; it's more of a natural fit for Turner there, Doug. And just think about what this team has been able to do with Nick Richards. I mean, a JT Thor, in spot play. They've managed to turn some of these guys into productive, at least offensive players, and at least guys on the defensive end who can, in Richards' case, go get a loose ball here and there. If they had someone with an actual, the talent level of a Myles Turner, think about that, especially with this whole team healthy and LaMelo finding the ball with the scorers spaced out. Yeah, it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I've got some bad news for the Hive Lifers out there. I can't, for some reason, Restream is not letting me. The service that we used to put this thing live is not letting me load the video. So if we do, I still want to do Hive Life. I can maybe sort of pretend, do the music, with my vocal cords. That's
Sure.
what I offer to you, Walker, if you want to do Hive Life.
Yes. Please sing. Are you just going to do the beat for us? Either way, I'm actually.
I'll try. I don't know if I can remember it, but I'll give it my absolute. I'll do a valiant effort in honor of what the Hornets have been doing over the past couple of weeks.
Damn decent of you, Doug. Go ahead, buddy. Try it out.
Do 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 do. Hive Life.
And that's the beat drop. Thank you very much, Doug. We are living the Hive Life a little bit better than usual today. I'll kick us off here because Miles Bridges, Eric Collins, they're kind of morphed into a couple of my favorite things that I saw this week. One,
Collins.
Yeah, let's go with Miles first. Miles Bridges says he wants to catch Draymond Green on a dunk when he talked with Malika Andrews and Richard Jefferson earlier this week. And we saw them when they played Golden State. I think Draymond went to him and said, go get you the bag at the beginning of the season when Miles was so clearly in the front running of a possible MIP award. But Draymond, Miles...
Tampering.
Yeah, exactly. But both of those guys being Michigan State alums, or having gone there, so pretty cool there. I would love Miles Bridges to catch Draymond Green on a dunk, so that was pretty cool. But then Miles giving you some attitude in a couple of ways. One, calling out that he wants to dunk on Draymond, but then we all saw what happened with Andre Drummond, and then after the game, we've talked about Turner so much. Miles Bridges said that he wasn't impressed. What is he, like close to 7 foot, 280 pounds? Yeah, I'm not impressed with that guy. This is like the NBA is like WWE. Ain't nobody really trying to fight. And then when they got into a tussle, this is where Collins comes in. He says, hey, Andre played for Detroit. Myles is from Detroit. That's the difference between the two. Myles giving us some nasty. Eric Collins putting a bow on all of that in an expert way. That was what giving me Hive Life this week.
I think anytime you compare someone or you're on the same floor as Joel Embiid, everyone looks smaller. So even though Andre Drummond is a large person, Myles was comparing him to Embiid and saying, I could probably take him too.
And by the way, Myles Bridges from Flint, even a little bit different. That even hits a little harder.
Well, and, you could understand Drummond's frustration, though, because he was getting – I mean, in those two games, he was getting yammed on. He was getting pushed around. He was getting knocked to the floor.
He got the thunder dunk, right? That's
my Hive. That's what's giving me Hive Life this weekend is JT Thor and that Thor's hammer that he dropped on Andre Drummond. I mean, I think the future is extremely bright for JT Thor. I'll tell you, zooming out – what's giving me Hive Life is that the Hornets, after all of these years, there's a lot of people in the chat right now that I suspect have become Hornets fans in the past couple of years. But for the Hornets fans that have been riding since the Bobcats days, it is just a revelation to see someone like JT Thor on the floor with the long arms and the energy on defense and the athleticism and the hops that Book Night showed. I mean, what? After all of these years, we finally have it.
It feels like we've come a long way.
And you want to trade it away. We finally have it, and you want to trade it away.
No, Thor was in none of those deals. No, Thor was in none of those Harry Mandel deals.
That's right. We've got JT Thor, but that's what allows us to get rid of a potential Book Night and a Kai Jones. And the Kai Jones one is interesting, though, because like Kai is – you traded a first-rounder to get him. I wonder if there's this, it's not sunk cost because you're using it as a piece to go get a Myles Turner. But I wonder if because you traded a first rounder to go get him, you are wanting to hold on to him a little longer. Thing is, his immediate impact is not there. It's always been a longer project, even with a JT Thor on the team. Does he fit the short-term timeline for this team that has a playoff mandate? I mean, Kai Jones isn't going to be this awesome player next year. Like we got a little time to cook with Kai, and that I think that's the thing that you have to try to figure out with him.
This live chat right now is buck wild. It's giving me this live chat is giving me Hive Life right now. These guys are. I love it. You all are. You're getting in there, figuring out everybody. I think everybody's been traded at this point in the live chat. The only thing that makes me sad is that you can't hear the awesome Hive Life music. So stick around. Come back next week. We might do this again live next Friday. We always do Hive Life heading into the weekend.
Live
these
lunch
guys
on
are
Friday.
tussling in here.
Live lunch Fridays. No, yeah, you're right, Doug. Just seeing those guys. Look, you go back to the drafting, the thinking around the draft, who they're drafting, the type of players they're adding. They weren't doing that for a long time, Doug. That's why we never saw anyone come off the bench and explode for a dunk. They weren't drafting these long, lengthy guys who can run and add that to the mix. So that's the shift. That's where it started. It is thrilling to see it, play out on the court, as you mentioned. I mean, everybody's talked about it, but look at what they had to go to in this week when they had so many guys out. Ask guys who have not played any minutes, much less 20 minutes and stuff for Thor. So for him to come in and do that is really impressive. But what is giving me the Hive Life, I mentioned it earlier, it's the scoring they have on this team, all the options. 5 different scorers hit 30 points or more for the last 5 different games. Some of those guys are no longer available right now, but that's why you have hope for this team to at least keep it interesting, maybe sneak out a win here or there until they get the full reinforcements back. But the talent they put on this team, number 1 scoring team in the league, to have those guys, a handful of them averaging over 15, 16 points a game already, it's a testament, again, to Mitch and what they put in here. It's a testament to guys like Miles Bridges who have developed and popped. That's exciting, and that's what keeps you going. That's what gives you the Hive Life.
Well, and they're going to need it tonight against the Sacramento Kings. We didn't get a chance to really talk about that, but the Sacramento Kings, they're on a 3-game winning streak offensively. They've just been absolutely on fire. Scored over 140 points in regulation against Orlando. So the Hornets are going to have every offensive weapon. They're not going to have, despite some confusion on Twitter from the Hornets PR, a little bit of confusion there, and Woj got caught up in the confusion. They got Woj. Yeah, usually it's the fake Woj that gets us. This time it was the weird tweet that got Woj. But the Hornets will still be missing 5 players, 5 rotation players due to the protocol.
And that's not it.
It's going to be a tough game.
There's a new injury update, by the way. We just had this come in within the last 10 minutes. So you are going to be without those 5 players. And forward PJ Washington, a non-COVID illness, has been added to the injury report as doubtful for tonight's game.
Wait. Is that illness trade-itis?
It is. It might be. I mean, he's been suffering from it ever since the Myles Turner sources or reports have come out. But
you got to trade him now. You definitely trade him now.
No, clearly, non-COVID illness, doubtful now. So, hey, the people in the chat that want Kai Jones, maybe now's the time. Like, I don't know. You know, we're 6 people out for this team, and now you're talking about essentially your starter with PJ, Nick Richards, JT Thor, your boy. We're going to see
Kai Jones. People in the chat screaming for Kai Jones to play, and you might. It looks like you're going to get your wish.
I mean, Borrego did talk a little bit about Vernon Carey, I think, before the last game. I don't think he got in, so maybe that's more of a possibility. So
yeah, Vernon seems like just not even existent with this team anymore.
Well, if Vernon Carey plays over Kai Jones, this chat is going to riot.
Do we worry? Before we end today, I want to end on one of the comments from the chat from old mate Sean, who I think is staying up very late with us in Australia. We appreciate that. He did tweet out after your little jingle, Doug, that was a certified banger. So thank you to old mate Sean
for shooting up the Australian charts, Doug.
You're going to have your face over on a billboard in Sydney at any moment right now. All right, thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every single day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Thanks to Doug. Thanks for David for joining us this fun Friday, doing the Hive Live, doing the Hive Life. We'll be back with you next week.